Hi, welcome back to OldSoulPodcast. My name is Bree, that's spelled B-R-E-I. Thank you so much. It's been quite a bit of time since I've done a podcast, but today we are going to kick off October with something not scary or horror, but it's noted as something that could be like crime, detective, to creep in the fall. And the film that I'll be discussing and making commentary about today is The Maltese Falcon, or as a lot of the actors in the film pronounce it, Maltese Falcon. I don't know, Falcon comes out a lot more. Maybe that's my Midwestern way of pronouncing it. I don't know. And I'll probably say Maltese Falcon and not the Maltese Falcon because it just sounds weird altogether. This film was released in 1941. It's considered a noir film. If you understand noir, I've done a video with my Gilda video for commentary that you can go back and backtrack on what noir is as a genre, or you can just do a quick Google search. The runtime for this film is 1 hour and 40 minutes. And the quick brief summary that imdb gives for the film is a private detective takes on a case that involves him with 3 eccentric criminals, a gorgeous liar, and their guest for a priceless statuette. And that's actually a quest for the priceless statuette. I don't know why I said guest. So yeah, this film is, like I said before, a noir film, and I did intentionally pick it because it was a noir film. I've seen it 2 other times besides this specific viewing that I will talk about now. Some things that I noticed, differences, but I think it's important to let you know as an audience that I've seen this film before. I think it's always good to watch films more than once, especially if you're going to discuss it, because there's just always going to be things that you didn't notice in the first viewing. But I do think there's a specialty in the first viewing in that everything is so new and fresh and exciting. I will be doing just a summary of this film, but I do want to kind of break down some scenes that stood out to me, or just aspects of the film. I'm gonna start with the beginning because there was a scene in the beginning that I really liked, and it's sort of a bit of foreshadowing, but I don't know if, I want to say it wasn't intentional, but I feel like everything with film noir is intentional and so specific with like the lighting, focus. In school, we did learn about lighting in terms of noir specifically, and how there's like backlighting, low-key lighting. Like there's actual terminology for the type of lighting that you see in film noir, and probably even today, I'm sure. I just don't know all the technical terms for it. And that's what creates such the outstanding aesthetic of film noir, and the shadows. If you know anything about noir, it's really low-key lighting on top of, this was released in like 1941, so it's in black and white, and so you have the contrast of already like black and white and ... gray, obviously, and you have the contrast of the very low-key lighting where you just see so many shadows, maybe not the small details in terms of like if you had color and like HD quality now, but it does create a whole new aesthetic and feel for the film that I feel like is just undeniable about the beauty of film noir and that whole time frame and genre that maybe, yes, could be recreated in modern times, but obviously it wouldn't be in the same way, in the same respects. So I just really like film noir as a genre. Just from a film perspective and a technical perspective, it's just really pretty to look at and really interesting and intriguing. Even if the plot isn't always there. Hint, hint, the big sleep. If you know, you know. Gilda, too much going on. So those are just references to other film noir films. I will state that Humphrey Bogart is in this film, and he's like the poster child, or like the face of film noir from what I know. And I just tend to really like a lot of film noir that Humphrey Bogart is in. And there's like this whole thing with Humphrey Bogart and Bacall. Anyway, like I said before, if you know, you know, but I'm just gonna backtrack back to the Maltese Falcon, but I just wanted to bring in some of those details. And the reason why I brought up lighting is because you instantly get that feeling when you start the film. And there's this whole thing that happens. I guess you could call her a client. Her name is, in the film, Bridget O'Shaughnessy. She would be what we call the femme fatale, because she's like this seductress, beautiful woman, I guess, who pretends like she needs saving or help, but really she might not be as nice as you think she is, sort of filled with the femme fatale. And you'll find in a lot of film noir that the woman is either like the virgin sign of purity, or she's like a seductress, and hardly ever is she both. I do think there are some films that make them kind of in between, but usually the women have a very boxed in character. I do think there's a time with the femme fatale where you're still trying to figure out if that's the femme fatale. So she could appear to be the virgin dichotomy, the virgin whore dichotomy in the film, but later you find out she's the femme fatale, or pretty quickly, like midway through the film, that you find she's a femme fatale because you can't trust her. But the cool thing, before I actually start the story, so film noir, is that no one is like clean, right? Hardly ever in a film noir, from what I've seen and what I like, there's probably more that I haven't seen, are the characters just like goody two shoes. And I love that, because not only does it help the plot in that you can't really trust any of the characters, even the main characters whose viewpoint could be obstructing something or manipulated for the audience, but it's just so cool to see something that feels realistic, because I feel like most humans are very flawed, and even if they're like average people or what we would consider morally good people with decent values, on screen they're not like, what's a good example? MGM films that are produced by MGM in the same time or later, it's very clear that they're going to give you Hollywood movie star content when you watch the film, like right off. There's like 3 acts. You kind of can predict what's going to happen, and you can do the same with noir once you start getting the routine of the stylistic approaches with storytelling and film aesthetic. But I love that the characters are not trustworthy, because it's funny. The dialogue is so funny. We'll get into that later, but they're funny, and there's twists and turns, and you're just like, who do I trust? Nobody. But who cares? Because I like them all, right? Even the ones that are very clearly there to be a problem and the bad guys are still very interesting on screen. I'm gonna note that. Okay, so our main character's name is Samuel Spade. Probably call him Bogart and Spade because he's Bogart, for God's sakes. Anyway, Spade is a private detective. He's the hard-boiled character who's going to scope out what's going on, and he has a partner whose name is Miles, I believe. Miles Finch. Checking my notes. Oh no, his last name is Miles Archer. Okay, not Finch. I don't know where I got Finch from. So it's Spade, Samuel Spade, and Miles Archer, and they're partners, they're private detectives, they have like their own office, and when you start the film, maybe a little after they have a conversation, but nonetheless in the beginning, there's a door that has their names, their last names on it for their office, and the camera close-ups on a shadow on the floor of their office of Spade and like Archer, which is kind of cool, and just like aesthetically and visually. But then later something happens to one of the characters, and there's even a moment in the film where one of the names gets taken off the door per request from another character. So that's why I think it's foreshadowing. But anyway, before we get a close-up on the floor shadow of the names of the detectives, there is a client who shows up. Her name is Bridget O'Shaughnessy, and she shows up and pretty much tells Archer and Spade that she needs their help. I think she gives them like $200, something of that extent, for them to tail or find out information about her quote-unquote sister who ran away with this guy named Thursby, and she thinks he's bad news. At first she didn't really think anything of it. She thought her sister would just come back home, but she's worried and she just wants them to like scope the guy out. And so she gives them a location of where he would probably be at a certain time, and Archer agrees to go. They both think she's really pretty. And later you find that Spade nor Archer supposedly really believed her story. She seemed really shady, but she gave them enough money that they didn't care, which I think is more funny when you find out later that that's what they were thinking, because of what happens. So immediately after, we get this scene of Archer at that specific location, and I believe this is in California, maybe San Francisco, somewhere in California. That's their setting location, whatever. And we don't see who he's looking at. I don't think we even really get enough time to see a reaction of him interacting with whoever's looking at him. We just see a gun and it like shoots at him, and he like falls over this railing and off a cliff, like some sort of cliff type thing. And I love that. I love that we immediately know he's in danger, and it's quick, and that's it. And that's noir. We now have our central theme of what the hard-boiled character is going to have to figure out, like he's some sort of superhero. He's gonna have to find the clues and figure out who did it, which is super fun. I love that. But again, I don't recall getting a real reaction from Archer because it was so quick to note as an audience member if he was familiar with the person. I don't think he was supposed to be meeting Bridget there. I'm pretty sure she just told them to scope out Thursby, which was the guy that Bridget claimed had a hold over her sister, blah blah. Again, I will repeat that Spade mentions later in the film that he did not believe Bridget, and in fact later, after Spade goes to the scene of the crime and he hears about what happened to his partner, he sees that his partner is dead. The detectives are speaking to him and also starting to question him, and you see if he's a suspect, which he does not like for obvious reasons, but still, it's protocol, I guess. He later meets with Bridget because he's doing his own investigation. Of course, he's a detective himself, and he tells her, like, I never believed your story anyway, when he finds out she was lying. Okay. The police or whatever are another villain in the story, and it tends to happen in noir too, where they're not necessarily the good guys. In most films, police would be depicted as the saviors, the helpful whatever, right? And that's another cool thing about noir. It's like even the police aren't good guys. Like, they're just getting in the way of the hard-boiled character, right? It's like everyone against the hard-boiled character, and he has this mission. It's almost super dramatic that it's ridiculous, but it's so funny, and it works so well in noir films. But anyway, so they're like questioning him, and they want him to give them answers about what they know about Archer, and there's this whole other plot that sometimes the plot and the sequence of events get a little merged in my brain, because I start getting focused on other things that interest me more than a specific aspect of plots that come up, and there are quite a bit that show up when the characters show up because there's more context that comes with it and it just gets mixed up. So if you do notice something that I state in this commentary and you're like, well, I think it was this way, or oh, you forgot this, that's great. The whole point of commentary is to create discussions. I could be wrong, but I do remember the police showing up to his apartment. This could be a lot later though, and there's this whole other plot about Spade pretty much saying that he didn't even like Archer like his best friend, and he wants to get justice for him. He wants to get justice because it's the thing that you must do just because he's his partner. Like, he even states to Bridget later that like he's not doing this because he particularly loved Archer. In fact, he talks about how Archer was like not the best like he didn't really like him, right, as a person, and he didn't have the best marriage. There's the whole thing where his his widowed wife shows up to Spade's apartment and kind of acts like she wants to like be with him, like sleep with him or something. And it makes me wonder, like, did they ever have a relationship, or did the wife always just have something like a crush for Spade? Was it mutual? And Spade just kind of brushes her off. Like, he gives her the update on what's happened to her husband. Like, I think he's the one who like makes the call to her, or says he makes the call. There's a lot of things he says to the like police that isn't true, just trying to get them off his back. So sometimes as an audience member, I'm even like, oh, is he lying? Is he being sarcastic? And the dialogue has a very, very sweet and well-rounded way of being funny, straight to the point, and sarcastic. I'll pull up some quotes here shortly. But yeah, so that's like a whole plot, and I was wondering if like something actually happened or if this is all just hearsay, but it's something that should be noted. Clearly his relationship wasn't good if after like not even 24 hours his wife is trying to like sleep with his partner. His partner didn't really like Archer, who's the one who was killed by who they assume could be Thursby, but who knows. And then it's just, yeah, from the start it's immediately like energy, good pacing. Okay, so Spade goes on his own quest and he starts, trying to give the cops the runaround because they're bothering him and he's annoyed by it and they're suspecting him, whatever. And then he's like talking to Bridget, who's giving him the runaround. He finds out when he like goes to her apartment, she's saying all these things like, oh my god, I need protection now that your partner's dead. They could be after me. I'm pretty sure they're after me. The whole thing I told you about my sister was a lie. And that's when Spade's like, yeah, I thought so. It sounded ridiculous, but I don't care. The money was great. And fucking hilarious, right? And it seems like she's trying to like seduce him, which comes back in the femme fatale, which is just something that the women get put into boxes. I should also note that there is an assistant receptionist for Spade at his office who's really interesting. Her name is Effie, and Effie is so cool. She's like would you call her sidekick? I don't know. She's interesting. She's funny, she's witty, she's likable. She isn't in much of the movie, but she also is. Like, she gets little snippets, and I just want to say that I like her in general, her character. She's not too cutesy. She's very human. Her reactions are very natural. Her acting's great. Everyone's acting is great, but she is one of my favorite characters in the film besides Spade and Bridget. Bridget's funny too. Funny in that, like, you can never get anything serious from her. She's always lying. So that I find that very funny, and I find that Spade's ability to sniff that out is hilarious. And their banter and their back and forth and dialogue all through all the characters. Genius. But Effie is just adorable and witty, and I like her a lot, and I just wanted to note that there before I forget. So Bridget and Spade are in her apartment, and they're pretty much at this point negotiating like who's gonna help who, while not trusting each other, but also needing to kind of trust each other to get what they want ultimately. We find that ultimately Spade's goal is to get justice for his partner because it's what he does, he should do because it was his partner and nothing else. And Bridget is just trying to protect herself while still getting what she wanted as an end goal. She came here with like not a lot of money. We find later that there's this whole other reason why she's there that has nothing to do with, well, it has something to do with Thursby, but it's more like getting Thursby out of her way. Again, the selfish, lying, manipulation aspects. And there's this statuette that they call the Falcon, or the Maltese Falcon, and it's supposed to be like this rare thing that tons of people have been looking for years, and it's super, like, it's worth tons of money. And so there's supposed to be, that statuette's supposed to be arriving sometime soon, and that's why all these people are like showing up, and Bridget's showing up to this location in California, and she's trying to get people out of her way in the process. And she kind of tells Spade, she doesn't really tell him about the Falcon. It comes up with a different character, I'm pretty sure. But she like tells him like she needs protection, so like watch after her, I'll pay you, whatever. And she only has a certain amount of money, and he's like negotiating a price. He gets his money and he leaves. right? He's still scoping her out. He doesn't believe a word she says. And she's playing seductress. Excuse me. So Spade has an interaction later at his office. He's talked to the cops. Well, they've kind of come in on him and then talked to him at the scene of the crime. And then there's a scene with Caro. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Joel Caro. He comes in with his cane and all and being super, super suspicious. Just in the sense that, like, he's not there for anything good, but it's not just like a client inquiring for Spade service, even though that's what he tries to pretend to be. You can tell that Spade's scoping him out and Carl's scoping Spade out. And it's so funny. The whole scene, it's just ridiculous. But anyway, Carl goes in and he starts bringing up things, and eventually he starts talking about the Falcon, and Spade looks away for like 2 seconds, and Caro pulls out this like gun, and he's like, I intend to search your office. And you can tell Spade's super pissed, like, dude, how are you gonna come up in here and like threaten me in my office with a gun? And then at some point they have like a whole like fight, or like slap fist fight, the little, like, you hear the sound effect and he punches him, knocks him cold, the one punch thing in Noir. And he knocks him out, and he gets the gun away. Like, I think he kicks it on the floor, and he digs through Carl's pockets looking for like ID and money while he's out cold waiting for him to wake up. He wakes up, and they go over the whole thing about the Falcon and how it's valuable and how he has a boss who he's worked with before, or partners he's worked with before. I think they actually call him, his name is Gutman, but he has some other name for him, and other people like Thursby or whoever were involved in this situation at some point. Any connections, that gets a little foggy for me. But ultimately, he gives Spade the rundown in the way that Bridget wouldn't have given him. And he assumes that Spade has the Falcon or knows where it is. I don't really know why. I don't know if it was the connection to Bridget or something like that, but he shows up at Spade's office for thinking he has it, and he doesn't have it. Spade doesn't have it. He doesn't know anything about it. So that makes him even more upset that the guy showed up with a gun, and he's claiming that you have this thing that obviously he doesn't have. Okay, so yeah. And once Caro wakes up, he is mad that he got hit, but it's like, you had a gun, dude. What did you expect? And the whole thing with the cane, the way that his reactions are so vivid and real and authentic, and I love that. But the cane is really distracting, and it's, yeah, when you watch it, you'll understand. There's probably whole papers and like research papers done about noir in this specific scene, I'm sure, but you'll know if you watch the film what I'm talking about with the cane. Anyway. I'm thinking about it, trying not to laugh. Spade goes and like walks away, and Caro, after they have this whole thing about the Falcon, what's going on, and Caro has the audacity to try to pull the gun up again, and then he like threatens him again, and Spade just starts laughing at this point. He just thinks it's ridiculous. He's not afraid of Caro. He's like, okay, whatever, search my office, I'm over this, look around, whatever, and he just laughs it off. Whatever. Scene. So good. And at this point, Bridget, in the film, I'm gonna just run through this. Bridget isn't trustworthy. You find that everything's coming to a head. Like, he's talking later to another set of people that was brought up before by Caro, I believe. But there's this guy named Gutman who's also looking for the Maltese Falcon. He's been trying to find it for years, and so he's super amped about this, and he's not gonna let anybody get in his way. Spade's constantly being like tailed by Gutman's gopher, I guess, who's not really doing a good job because Spade he knows that he's following him, but whatever, and he's starting to get annoyed. The wife pops up every now and then, Archer's wife. Spade has no time or energy for her, and then the cops are suspecting him even more because the wife keeps showing up at his house, and they think that's weird, and so the cops are also watching him in some aspects, and he can't get a solid answer out of Bridget. This thing about the Falcon, he's learning more about it, but he doesn't really understand what's going on. he's trying to figure out who killed Archer in this whole chaos. And something that I get confused about, got lost about, was what is the original plot with Thursby, right? So we get to the point where all the back and forth, lovey-dovey, weird shit with Bridget, and all these people following him, and he has this interaction with Gutman, separately at Gutman's apartment or home that he's living in. And I don't remember if Wilmer, who's the gopher, is there, but not the point. So they have this whole debacle about the Falcon, and again, just with a different person. And at some point they like poison him or drug him so that he falls over, which, by the way, is the most dramatic ass scene ever, and it's so fucking good. Like, Spade gets poisoned by some way. I don't know if he drinks something or touches something. And he was talking to Gutman, and Caro, I think, actually showed up at some point before they all left, except for Spade because he got poisoned. And anyway, he's like slowly walking funny, and then he just like falls. And it's like, it gives you a whole, it doesn't even happen like quickly, right? It gives you a good minute of that. And I'm like, wow, that must have sucked. Okay, so when he wakes up, everyone's gone, and they end up maybe at his apartment. He had a backup plan, like he didn't believe anyone, and he had like a whole plan to get the Falcon when he found out where it was going to be and get it sent to him. And the guy who ends up bringing it to him actually gets killed. I don't know if he was stabbed or shot, but he gets to Spade's office, right, where he was told to bring the Falcon because Spade had his own little connections and figured that out. I don't really know the details of how he did that, but he did. And at this point, Effie, his assistant, is pretty in on things. Like, there was one point Bridget needed a place to stay because she had, again, made this sort of deal with Spade that he would help protect her, and she said she needed a place to stay, and Effie loaned her house for a while to help out. Other aspects like that, making calls, calling people back, helping them out with errands, just things like that, where she was super beneficial, and I really liked her character. But when that guy shows up at the office, I think she realizes even more of the severity of the situation when he comes in and he literally dies. Like, someone killed him or hurt him enough, wounded him enough that because of the Falcon, that by the time he got there with the Falcon to deliver to Spade, he was dead. Which is, whoa, what the fuck? That's crazy, right? Anyway, they don't call the cops or the ER to try to help the guy. They just grab the fucking Falcon bird, right? They want to know what's going on. I think Spade probably tells Effie, like, well, no, he does. He tells her, like, when I leave, do this, A, B, and C, right? Call this, tell them this exact story, not necessarily the story that happened, but the story I'm going to tell you to tell them, right? Whatever, okay. And they open up this package, and indeed it is the Falcon. And let's correlate and rewind, go back. So when he was getting poisoned at Gutman's apartment with Wilmer, who's the gopher who does everything for Gutman, and Caro, who's kind of partnering with Gutman and knows him, maybe some connection there, right? Well, there is a connection, I just don't know all the details. They all leave because they're going to the boat that's supposed to have the shipment of the Falcon, and I think they even like set it on fire to try to make a distraction so that they can grab it, but they don't get it because Spade has it delivered and grabbed by someone else who dies along the way of getting it delivered. I hope that makes sense. I'm just repeating it out loud because I am trying to make sense of it as I am making sense of it for you. And so he has the Falcon now, and he pretty much tells everyone to like meet him at his apartment. He has the goods. Fuck you for trying to poison me. Ha ha ha. You know, he has a last laugh sort of thing. So Gutman, Wilmer, Caro, and Bridget all show up to his apartment, right? And they have this whole scene of this incredible dialogue, back and forth, banter, witty attitudes. Essentially, Spade brings up, he's trying to figure out who killed Archer, right? But he also wants to try to make a deal. I don't know how truthful he's being at that time when he's like trying to make the deal, like if he really just wants to have a cut of the money, or if he's just trying to scope things out before he also figures out who killed Archer and then gets the money or turns it into the police. Essentially, he does make a decision, but in the time when he's talking to everyone, and then none of them trust each other, and they all want the Falcon, and it looks like a bunch of hyenas in a room that are going to scratch and nibble and crawl at each other at any moment, he sets it on like his desk and whatever. After they have all this negotiation, he wants there to be a fall guy, right? So there's this whole weird ass plot where Sam Spade wants to trade the Falcon for money. Well, he says he does, but again, I think he's just maybe deciding what he's gonna do while also trying to figure out who killed Archer. But he needs a fall guy, and for the murders that have been going on. So the guy who was killed along the way to getting the Falcon there, Thursby, is presumably dead. I think at this point they know that he is dead. They just don't know who did it. And then Archer is dead, which was Spade's partner. So I believe those are the 3 murders. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure those are the 3 murders. And they need a fall guy, right? So he's like, why can't Gutman should be the fall guy? And indeed, Gutman is the one who killed Thursby, or supposedly. Yeah, so he's the one who like pretty much is following people and killing people. Like, that's kind of his job, which isn't okay, but I'm just saying that's what he does. So it would make sense for him to be the fall guy, but obviously he doesn't like that, and he gets mad, and there's a whole thing between him and Spade, and Gutman's sort of just like, I look at him like as my own son, you know, that weird Godfather shit. But really, he doesn't care. He just cares about the Falcon. Anyway, that all happens, and then they come to some sort of agreement, and I think they decide to have Wilmer as a fall guy. They say, quote unquote, who knows who to trust. And then when he pulls out the Falcon, Spade finally pulls out the Falcon to show them that he really has it. They are so amazed and happy, and then they test it to see if it's real. It's not fucking real. It's not real. It's not real. And I'm assuming when we went to that boat and they tried to like, when the shipment of the Falcon was coming, and they tried to like do that fire as a distraction, and it wasn't there. So obviously it is definitely the Falcon that was on the shipment. It just wasn't the real one, or the theories of the real one. Who knows if it's even a thing, and maybe it's just always been a fake statue. Who knows? Not the point. The point is, now they're all pissed, and they have a moment of like anger and sadness, and then Gutman's like, oh, well, it's fine. I've been looking for it for years. I'll find it eventually. And Carl's like, really? Okay, I'll work with you. It's so crazy how like their greed and their hunger for this statue, and then it all falls apart, and then instantly they're like, it's okay, we'll keep finding it. We're sure it's a thing. But really, Spade's just trying to figure out who the hell killed Archer. And there's also the connection with Bridget. I'm still confused on whether technically he's the one who hires the hits through Wilmer. So I'm trying to figure out, I think Wilmer is the one who killed Thursby to scare Bridget, because the connection was that Bridget was with Thursby at some point, and he listened to her and like trusted her, but she pretty much like set him up and used him so that she could have the Falcon for herself. And Thursby was killed because he sided more with Bridget and what she said, and they couldn't have that. I think that was the connection. Again, let me know if that's not true, but that got a little foggy when we get through all the other stuff. But essentially, the person who killed Archer is indeed, you guessed it, or maybe you didn't, it's Bridget. Bridget is the one who killed Miles Archer in order to frame Thursby so that she wouldn't have to like share the Falcon or share the money from the Falcon, whatever, and could keep all the profits. So that's how Thursby falls in line with this, and that's how she uses him, a character who we don't ever see, which is another reason why it's a little confusing, because you never really get like a visible representation of him. He's just sort of like a ghost in the story, but still has a lot of footing in the story. And so it's Spade. Spade is like, you know, you're going to jail, honey. I'm not gonna cover for you. They have this whole talk when Gutman and Wilmer and all of them are out of there or whatever. They leave. And he's like, pretty much, and they find the Falcon is not real and it's a whole thing, but Spade keeps it. And everyone leaves, and he's over that now. He's called the cops. He knows it's her. He pretty much scopes her out and gets the confession. And she just has nothing to say, and she was like, oh, trying to get him not to turn her in. He's like, I'll wait for you, but you're gonna do the time. And he said, I'll wait for you, maybe just to be a hopeful bastard in the end, spiteful. But I doubt that he's gonna be waiting for her. It's just so funny how he keeps saying in the end, he's like, I know it's you, I'll wait for you, but you're doing the fucking time. It's a partner's job to avenge his partner. It's as simple as that. And then the cops show up, and she definitely did it. She's the one who killed Archer. She's the one who, and it was premeditated. She told him Thursby would be there. In fact, Thursby was never there and was never going to be there. She killed Archer. She was the one behind that camera, behind that gun that we saw on camera when we just saw the gun go off and he was dead as he fell over the rail. That was pretty fucked up, okay? Anyway, the police show up, and there's something, he's like, what's this? The bird, he's really confused, but obviously the cop's kind of like, okay, you figured out who it was, cool. And Spade's just like, this is stuff that dreams are made of, or something like that. And I'm like, oh my god. And the reference to dreams and this California Hollywood life, and then the greed of money and all that, it's interesting to me in the movie. Anyway, I will probably put a clip of that because I really love it, and the way that his line delivery is executed is great. And I did, before I described that last scene, want to talk about a few of the quotes from the film because they're just so damn good. There's a quote that Spade says to Caro. I think it's Caro that he tells this to someone. He says, when you're slapped, you'll take it and like it. I was so shocked by that line that I paused the film and I was like, what did he say? What did he say? Okay. There's a point where Wilmer and Spade are having an argument, and he just gets so mad about things that I just thought it was funny. And there's a moment where they were talking about the fall guy in Spade's apartment, and they had decided on Wilmer, Gutman's gopher. And he's like, well, Wilmer, I'm sorry indeed to lose you. The whole time he was saying, oh, he's like a son to me. And then as soon as he realizes he's gonna get the Falcon, or thinks he is, he just shits on the guy. He's just whatever, cuts him loose. I'm like, how fucked up is that? And anytime Spade's talking to Effie, it's always super sweet. There's a quote where he's like, you're a good man, sister. What? And Bridget's always lying, and when she gives you any ounce of truth, she only gives you half truths, or this very ambiguous tagline. There's a moment where she says, I haven't lived a good life. I've been bad, worse than you could know. And then Spade says, that's good, because if you actually were as innocent as you pretend to be, we'd never get anywhere. It's so good. Okay, I'm reading these now and I'm like, this is so good. What the hell? It's so good. Okay, so is there another one? Let me read. Let me see if there's another one I like. Yeah, I think that's... Okay, so there's some dialogue here that I'm going to read. Mr. Archer was so alive yesterday, so solid and hearty. Again, this is coming from Bridget, the person who ended up killing him, right? So wow, what a bitch. And then Spade's like, stop it. He knew what he was doing. those are the chances we take. Obviously, it's true, but it's also like, God, wasn't he your partner? And then that's when you find out later that he didn't even really like Archer. Not enough to, like, have him dead, but, like, he didn't really care about him, clearly. And then Bridget's like, was he married? And Spade says, yeah, with 10,000, sorry, yeah, with 10,000 insurance, no children, and a wife that didn't like him. Like, when I talk about how Spade is literally a savage and how none of them are good, like, great people, that's what makes it so entertaining. But you know what really just solidifies all that? The dialogue. The dialogue is exceptional. It's exceptional, and no one can tell me different. Anyway, the film ends on this really, really beautiful cut after, you know, Spade says something about dreams and walks out with a falcon, and I will definitely do a clip of this somewhere. And we see the elevator close on Bridget, and she's being taken out by the police, and Spade kind of just looks at her and watches it happen, and then later strolls off down the stairs. And you see the elevator doors close on her, but it's kind of like a see-through door. Like, you can see, it kind of looks like bars, almost like it's indicating like a jail cell, because that's where she's going, straight to prison. But I just thought that was another bit of foreshadowing, and it's really cool to have, especially right at the end, and it's a very jarring image that will stay with you, I think. So I'm gonna note that somewhere as I'm talking to you now. But that's all that I have for the Maltese Falcon. It was a great watch. I love this movie, and I hope that you go and watch it as well. If not, that's okay. I understand. Well, I mean, I don't understand. I think you should watch it, but I guess you're gonna decide that for yourself. Thank you, and have a great day. Bye.
Harry, what is it?
The stuff that dreams are made of.
Huh?